Welcome everybody to Dharma Punx, Seattle. We've been chunking through the 10 parami, the 10 perfections, and today we'll be diving into the concept of renunciation. And I feel of all of those 10, renunciation can be one of the most supportive to the other factors. If we even just dial it back to week 1, generosity, what do we renounce? What do we have to renounce in that situation? We have to renounce our self-centered tendencies, our tendency to sort of make everything about us and our little world, and not looking up and out from our little bubble. And last week, talking about sila or morality, what do we have to give up? We have to give up sort of unethical behaviors, harsh speech, stuff like that, and that sort of being a consistent theme through all of the parami. There's a contrast of something that we have to let go of in order to achieve the other. And so renunciation, I think, like most of the talks that I give, is one of the words that I have a lot of charge with. It's not a very common term in our culture, and when I tend to think of renunciation, I tend to think it's going to be hard and it's going to be something that I don't want to do. It's going to be some combination of those things, and that's what renunciation typically means to me. And so it can be that. Renunciation can be that, but often renunciation is maybe more synonymous when it comes to Buddhism with the term letting go, or giving up, releasing. And again, when I think about how often I might orient my mind toward renunciation, I would think maybe something more physical, like, I'm gonna go on a diet. That might be a common renunciation in our culture, or I'm gonna quit smoking, or I'm gonna do something more physical. And here, renunciation is really, when we synthesize it down, it can be a lot of things, but when we really synthesize it down, is being willing to let go of craving and to let go of aversion in any given moment. And one of the ways that shows up in my own personal practice is that there's some level of balance that comes with letting go. In my own practice, I've seen myself sort of oscillate in between trying to let go in really big ways and then failing and burning out, and then swinging that pendulum back to the other side of being maybe too loose and not very structured at all, and being tired of myself over there, and then swinging back to the other side of something more rigid, and kind of finding myself in this renunciation pattern, and finding that can be really disheartening, because it makes me feel like maybe I'm incapable, maybe I'm not good enough, maybe this practice is, I'm not cut out for it. And the way that Buddhism frames renunciation, and I'll dig into that a little bit more deeply toward the end, really what it's asking us to do is to come more balanced and to come more measured. So that way we don't find ourselves burning ourselves out. And that's something that I like I said, I've seen in the people that I work with and in my own practice, especially people that I've seen who are new to Buddhism, and the only ideal that they have is maybe monastics or something like that. And they're like, oh, this means that Buddhism is coming for my Netflix and, all of the cool things that I like. And trying to frame it more around where does that line happen, where it's something that I can enjoy, and where does it start to create suffering. And that's the part we're letting go of. We're not letting go often, sometimes, but often we're not letting go of the entire behavior or thing. We're letting go of the part that makes it suffering. And I do feel like I have to caveat on some level, because I feel like renunciation has to have some sort of energy match, where the more powerful the behavior, the more powerful and toxic something is, probably the more energy and determination we have to put behind it. So things like addiction, things like the spectrum of addiction, food addiction, porn addiction, alcohol, drug use, that kind of stuff is probably not going to work with this idea of we're just going to learn to moderate and learn when it's enough. Those types of things might require what in Buddhism they call adhitthana, a strong determination, where we have to say, all right, I have to put a lot more energy into this, a lot more energy behind this. And whereas, most of the other things in our lives, food, Netflix, sleeping, these other things that can create some amount of suffering, maybe not necessarily needing such a strong determination. So I will leave it there for now, and we will elaborate more during the talk. The question to pose today is, when has renunciation worked in your life? When has it not worked? And sort of maybe just being willing to look at and analyze what qualities that you brought to that experience that made it successful in times that it was less successful. Was there a quality of kindness? Was there a quality of hatred? I feel like a lot of my own failed renunciation practices was because it was something that I thought I should do, not because it was something that I felt I deeply understood and that I knew I needed to do. It was just healthy people eat this way and, exercise this way and do this, and so I'm just going to do that because people say I should. And not that we shouldn't, but not really coming in with the understanding, more coming in from this sort of ego-driven, and the way that, for me, that often fails when it's coming from this way of comparison to others. So something to think about in your groups as well. Go ahead and find your groups. So we'll sit for 30 minutes. Closing our eyes, settling in. Taking a moment to take inventory of what your energy level is. Is there an emotion or energy coloring the mind in a certain way? Sluggishness, restlessness, irritation. Contentment, relief. And before we get too deep into meditation, it can be important to have a sense of what we're coming in with. So that way it's not a surprise later. And then when you're ready, you can transition into softening the body. Relaxing the muscles around the eyes. Relaxing the jaw. Letting the shoulders melt away from the head. Your spine and body like a coat resting on a coat hanger. I'm finding wherever the breath comes and goes most easily. This can be at the chest, belly, or nose. Finding one place and sticking with it for this meditation. If you find that the mind is fairly restless, you can try adding a word in between each inhalation and exhalation. Something simple, ease, harmony. Let go. It's like this. If you find that the mind is sluggish, you might try and do some longer inhalations to rouse some energy in the body. One of the important aspects of letting go is the needing to do something about a situation, the need for control. And so even as we sit with our breath, maybe we don't like the way the breath feels. Maybe we don't like what the mind is doing. And it's nonstop chatter. We can let go of the need to do anything about the mind. We can just continue to take refuge in the breath as it independently moves and morphs, trying to steal the limelight, distract us, entice us into suffering again. wherever your point of contact is with the breath, allowing that connection pathway to open from nose to belly, moving between these two channels. Scanning the body. Continuing to expand the breath from out the top of the crown of the head down to the soles of the feet. Inhaling, the breath moves up, out the top of the head, and exhaling, the breath moves down toward the soles of the feet, sweeping through the body. Softening any places that might have tensed up throughout this process. And like a dropper, drop in the word compassion in the heart center. Noticing how that feels. Does it shift the quality of energies? Does restlessness arise? Aversion? Joy? And allow yourself to bring to mind something that has needed some letting go. Maybe not the most difficult thing, but something maybe you've known for a while and that's needed some letting go. And engaging compassionately, bringing it to aware. Following through with care. Release. Ease. Taking this at whatever speed you would like, bringing your subject into the awareness, spending some time with care. Often where people get tripped up is the release aspect. We can notice our claws want to dig in. And rather than thinking of release as we never have to deal with this ever again, we're forgetting. Instead, framing it as, I don't have to do anything about this right now. I release. And upon the cessation, noticing ease. Aware, care, release, ease. If you're finding that whatever you've brought to mind is difficult to care about, just take it easy, this meditation, and swap out for something that feels easier to care for. This is practice. If you find yourself continuing to get stuck at the release, just applying some simple investigation. What part of this maybe feels extremely personal? Where's the I and the story? What this says about me? Is there a belief that there's lasting happiness in this thing we're trying to let go of? Is there an unwillingness to accept impermanence, the inevitability of change? Now, releasing this aspect of the meditation, returning back to the breath and the body. Getting a sense for what the quality of mind and the energy is now. Is it roughly the same? Is there a difference? More or less agitated? When you hear the sound of the bell, slowly opening your eyes and allowing attention to come back to your surroundings. back, everybody. So renunciation, if we're drawing the parallel to renunciation, having some synonymous nature with letting go, hopefully the meditation gave a strategy on how one might approach letting go. That is one of the major challenges, maybe often in our practice we encounter something that we're suffering about, and wouldn't it be nice if we just could make the decision to let go? Just being like, okay, I'm letting go now. So long, shitty behavior, forever. But it doesn't work like that. Often we find the mind has a lot of bite back, has negotiations to come to the table with. And so, compassion being a strategy that we can use to approach this idea of letting go, but it's not the only way. And one of the things that can be useful to also reflect on this idea of how is the Buddha lists 7 different ways. So you have many options you can apply to attempt at letting go. I have come up with a what do you call that? Acronym. An acronym, so that way they're more easily memorized, because it's a little bit of a challenging one to memorize. It's SURE, SURE, ADD, ADD. They don't make sense together, but they're 2 words that are real. And so the first one that he talks about is seeing. This one might be compared to just being able to understand through the lens of the Four Noble Truths. And this is what I meant toward the beginning of the talk about what do I mean when we're approaching renunciation practice from this stance of ego. It's something that I should do. This is what all the cool people do, so I'm gonna do this thing because I think I should, versus do I actually understand why I'm giving this up? Do I actually understand the way that it causes suffering and how to end it? So seeing clearly can be a great catalyst for letting go. When we truly see, when we truly understand what it costs us to continue to engage, will we still continue? Sometimes the answer is yes. Sometimes that's not enough, so it's a good thing there's 6 other things that we can employ. But sometimes it is. Sometimes just being able to see clearly, and it's one of my own favorite strategies to utilize with letting go. So that's S. U is using. Yes, using. Using to let go, which is kind of a strange one, but it's in terms of what they call in Buddhism the 4 requisites. So the 4 bare minimum things you need according to Buddhism to practice, which is food, enough food, nourishment, a roof over your head, and I'm like, wow, I'm forgetting the 3rd one. Food, shelter, clothes, and medicine. And in my own practice, I feel like I need so much more than that. I need certain types of food. I need my Coke Zero stocked in the fridge. All of these things that I think that I need to be happy. And that's one of the functions of going to monastery or on retreat, is you're forced to give a lot of that shit up. You're forced to take some time away and let go of a lot of the things we think we need to be happy. Especially, if you add in the 8 precepts. Sorry, I know I'm going like list crazy. I'm going to try and speak more clearly. But often at the monastery or on retreat, they're going to say you can't eat after 12 p.m. They're going to say you can't indulge, or you ought to not. Not like you can't. You totally can. You can do whatever the fuck you want. But you ought to try to not indulge in sleep. Maybe not listen to your favorite podcast or your raindrop sounds before bed. And refraining from entertainment and beautification. And again, it's not saying like that if you remember from last week when we talked about the precepts, like these are not the moral aspect of the precepts. We're not saying that like entertainment is bad and wearing makeup is bad and earrings is bad, right? Like that these are additional processes that we can utilize to see more clearly our practice and what we think that we need. So that is using. I'll add one more thing that I think is really useful in terms of the using aspect, which is that if we're trying to build concentration for our meditation, the more we're willing to let go of, the easier meditation gets. There is kind of a direct correlation between those things. That's one of the reasons why going off to a monastery or a meditation retreat is so... Can I help? You're good. Okay. It's not only because you're being placed in this other place. It's all of the stuff that you've let go of that allows you to go deeper into the meditation. So that's something to also consider. The third one is restraint. So being willing to guard our sense doors on some level. Restraint in just noticing that all of our contact, all of the craving that comes through our senses. Sometimes I get this like funny little visual in my meditation practice where I have like these like spectral hands coming out of like my nose and my eyes and both of my ears, and like I'm just like sitting there in meditation and they're just like out here grabbing shit to like hate or like want. And like that's just what's happening all day, every day. And so again, when we're talking about renunciation practice, the more that we're submerged in stuff, the more that those like crazy spectral hands of the senses are going all day long. It's exhausting. And the more that we can simplify some of our life, the easier it is to be able to establish a calm and ease in our meditation practice in our lives. The next one to complete, sure, is enduring. One of my favorite Buddhist quotes is, patient endurance is the incinerator of defilement. This sounds just metal as fuck to me. Patient endurance is the incinerator of defilement. I don't feel like I need to add too much to that. I think that it kind of speaks for itself. But one of the things when it comes to enduring is, and I feel like when I think of renunciation, enduring is the one that my mind would probably go to immediately before really coming to understand what renunciation means. If I were to think, like, what is renunciation? It means enduring. Like, I gotta endure some shit. It's gonna be hard. And in this case, you know, adding that patient endurance. If we're patient like we are with a child, right? We're not just sitting there trying to hurry them up, right? Which is how often we approach endurance, is like, okay, how do we get this done and over with so that way, because, you know, there's pain that comes with endurance. But adding that patience, knowing that it's not likely going to happen along our timelines. Patience is a really important aspect of letting go. And sometimes it is sort of just being like you're sitting in a fire. So that's sure. Then we have add, which is avoiding. Starting with A, avoiding, which seems sort of counterintuitive to Buddhism in some ways. Often we characterize Buddhism as turning toward, or we're constantly turning toward the truth, turning toward pain, turning toward knowing. And one of the ways we can let go is by avoiding. This, used with some amount of discretion, avoiding in this case means like really high stakes situations, you know, so rerouting back to the beginning when I was talking about, well, what kind of renunciation are we doing? Are we doing this strong determination that requires a lot of energy? Avoiding can be a really, really useful way to employ. Like when I'm helping folks come straight out of addiction, or, you know, approaching new behaviors, new territory, my instruction to them is not often turn toward. Because why would I want you to turn toward a mind that is a liar? That makes no sense. I want you to stop listening. And so in my own practice, learning in those situations where the stakes might be more high, where there might be really something on the line that if I actually tune into that frequency, could lead me into some really shitty behavior in some really shitty places, then avoiding those thoughts is the instruction. First foundation of mindfulness, returning to the breath or the phrase or whatever. Not useful to apply the investigation. Just come back. Avoid. It's like if somebody, you know, was trying to not drink, for example, and they walk past a bar and the mind says, oh, I should maybe go into the bar. Is the instruction to investigate? Well, why am I thinking about bars? Maybe I should go into the bar and investigate this further. What is it about this bar? No. Avoid the bar. Just keep walking. Not useful. So A. D, the first D, is dispelling. So Dispelling, similar to avoiding. I think of displacing. If I have a full cup of views and perceptions around something that I'm trying to let go of, that this might be a good place where compassion comes in. Is I'm going to replace. And some of you might have found in the meditation today, when there was some level of resistance in the letting go, you might have had to do some dispelling. I might have to replace, because if my cup is already full of views and perceptions, then it's going to be really hard for new things to come in, for compassion to come in. Because if I already know everything, then I'm not going to let new information come in. And that's one of the really important things that I continuously have to relearn, because there's something about the mind that continuously thinks that, like, this meditation or this experience, like, okay, I can finally sort of maybe be done with that. I can finally just kind of chill. And I've had to continuously remind myself that every time I set that line of, like, oh, this is it, I'm making a roof of other potential to happen. And so every time, I think to myself in a meditation, like, these are the perfect conditions. All my meditation should look like this one. That's actually quite limiting to what could continue to be possible. And so, similarly in my own life, with this dispelling, not allowing there to be sort of a cap of what I think that I know. And then finally, developing. So this one being a countermeasure to whatever it is that I'm trying to let go of. So if I'm, trying to work on relationship stuff, a developing thing that I've done in the past is, okay, and I've done both sides of this. If I'm working on relationship stuff, so maybe that means I need to date a bunch to kind of figure out, like, what I need to do. Develop some insight by practice. And then other times the development is more on the restraint side, and being like, okay, I'm gonna take a renunciation practice of a year of no relationships, and whatever it is that is coming up, being willing to develop the counter property of whatever it is that we're trying to let go of. So if this is, I'm getting snagged up with resentment over and over and over again, hatred just fueling, continuing, I can't let it go. Being willing to, maybe focus on forgiveness for a month, doing 30 minutes of forgiveness practice over and over and over again. So that way we can do what neuroscience has said that Buddhism does, which is really helps enhance our neuroplasticity. It really helps develop and some of the pathways that we have trained and rooted and have gone so deep from years and years of walking down that pathway to creating brand new ones that were not there. It's really beautiful. If you ever want to know more about the neuroplasticity side of things, I have that information. So, that being how we can let go, and the reason that I personally have found letting go to be a very fruitful aspect of my practice. It's a Pali term that I always forget how to pronounce. I'm not gonna butcher it. There is a word. I can see it in my brain. Mattanut? Something like that. Mattanut. Damn it, I still did it. I couldn't help myself. Anyway. An important quality to consider when we're approaching this letting go. I think I was talking a little bit about in the beginning, knowing when to let go. I think that's one of the things that the mindfulness practice begins to give us that information more accurately. Because often in my life before meditation, letting go should have happened like 6 years ago, and I'm still just like, I swear it'll work this time. And this term is knowing the right amount of any given situation, knowing the right time to let go. And when I was at the monastery, I think it's one of their precepts, one of the monks' precepts, they have this rule that they're not allowed to look in other monks' bowls, which sounds really funny. But, I can already see, in some of that, me and John were looking in each other's bowls and the judgment of oh, well, you got that much food, oh, you got that food, oh, you didn't get any spring mix, just the mind and the way that it creates these judgments. And one of the instructions that's interesting about that is also paired with the fact that it's not necessarily about making sure that you get the right amount of food. It's knowing the amount of food that they get, right? So there's no instruction on being well, make sure your bowl, because when you go to the monastery, you don't get to separate all of your food into, it's you throw it into one bowl. And so hopefully that paints the picture of we're not looking into other people's bowls. All of the food for the day is in this bowl. And there's not a measure of oh, it needs to be filled to the brim. It can't have a mountain over it. It only needs to be halfway full. There's not a right amount. It's knowing the amount. And that's one of the interesting things that you can develop as you're eating, is being oh, okay, I actually know that right now I got too much. That was something that came up for me, because you've got this whole Thanksgiving spread of all kinds of delicious food, and you're just yeah, I want a little bit of that, I want a little bit of this. And by the end you're fuck, that's so much food. And that's not the wrong part. The correct part is knowing, fuck, that was too much. And then also not crossing the line of being well, I'm not going to waste it. just might as well. But acting accordingly, like recognizing, oh, that was too much, and then eating just enough. And similarly to so many of the things we engage with, like with our relationships, or Netflix or whatever, we sit down and we say, okay, we're gonna watch 2 episodes before bed, and then, just one more. Or this relationship, well, what they did wasn't that bad. Being willing to let go at the right time. So that's what I've got for today. Any questions, reflections, thoughts? I just want to incinerate defilement. Me too. It's a fun visual. Just like my body being this incinerator. Okay. Well, thank you all for coming. As always, I appreciate this group that has been developing. And if you're tuning in online, I appreciate you tuning in as well. So a couple things. Last week I brought some books from the monastery. This book, The Breakthrough by Ajahn Amaro, that's like grandpa to Dharma Punx Seattle, is my teacher's teacher. So that book is free, and then there's another book, the Spiral Bound book is free. So if you would like a book, come grab one. Dana is important part, generosity, important part of our practice. So if you would like to give a $5 to $10 suggested donation, this is freely offered, but your help with the rent and expenses is appreciated. If you have less, give less. If you have more, give more. Throw in cash in the bowl, or you can Venmo me. I can give you that information after. So if you would like to dedicate the merit, may any goodness that was gathered here today be spread above and below, to the seen and the unseen, to those being born and to those who are dying.